Welcome to Dawn of a Story. This is more than a podcast. It's a place where we speak the truth, tell the stories that shape us, and honor the moments that made us who we are. I created the space because I believe storytelling is how we connect, how we heal, and how we remember who we are. Some stories are still being written. Some are full of laughter. Some have changed everything, but all of them matter. Whether it's my story or one of my guests, my hope is that you hear something that resonates, that reminds you that you are not alone and encourages you to tell your story too. So settle in because every story starts somewhere, and this one starts now. Thank you for tuning in and welcome to Dawn of a Story. I'm your host, Dawn Pascal. I'm so very grateful you decided to spend your time with me and my guest this week, Christopher Mackin. Every show, we will be exploring a new theme, and this week's theme is Legacy with Intention. Legacy is not about what we leave behind, it's about how we live each day. It's found in the values we embody, the relationships we nurture, and the intentional choices we make moment by moment. Legacy is presence, it's mindfulness, it's the echoes our lives create while we are here. This theme beautifully captures the heart of conscious wealth, living with purpose, cultivating abundance in every form, and inspiring others to do the same. In this conversation, we explore legacy as more than inheritance. It's about money, meaning, relationships, well being, and the stories we choose to tell and live. So, let me tell you a little about my guest. Christopher Mackin is a wealth advisor, author of Conscious Wealth, entrepreneur, and philanthropist who blends finance, spirituality, and sustainability. After a transformative journey in Sedona, he dedicates his life to elevating human consciousness, protecting the planet, and reimagining how wealth can serve both people and the earth. He is a board member of Faraway Projects, a member of Ocean Exchange, and the founder of ventures including Sacred Ohms and Arcadia. So without further ado, let's get started. Hi, Christopher. How are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing absolutely wonderful. So great to be here with you today.
I'm so excited you're here. I haven't seen you in 1,000 years, and I'm grateful that you and I could hook up and be here today. This is great.
Same.
So let's start here. I know that we're going to talk about legacy, but what was the moment in your own journey when you realized that success needed to be redefined for yourself?
Mm. Well, if I rewind back several years, you and I met when I was living in Hoboken and quite involved in the community.
Right.
And I had achieved a certain level of success in my practice of providing wealth management services to clients and helping people make smart decisions about their money. And so I was doing something I was passionate about. I saw the benefits of my work front and center. I was making good money. I was at the time traveling a pretty good amount, and I was also supporting causes that I was connected to, not only with my money but also with time. And yet, I felt depressed.
Mm.
I felt there was something missing, that I was unhappy and for a variety of different reasons and experiences. And from there, I just knew that I needed support. So I started to connect with life coaches and then started working with, well, actually, it was a therapist first. I found that didn't work. So I went to life coaches, and then life coaches transitioned into joining masterminds and then going on retreats and um, joining these experiences with other entrepreneurs and really going within,
Mm.
honestly, and exploring what was coming up for me and giving myself the space to do that. So going through that process of creating spaciousness and stepping out of being in business,
Mhm.
and more into being in connection and community and nature, um, opened my eyes to something that I realized I uh, hadn't really paid much attention to, and that's energy, our energy, our field. And what's interesting is that throughout the time, and what's really present for me this moment is that our atoms, what we're made up of, is 99 or 99% energy and 1% matter. But we focus pretty much 99% of our time on the matter, the
Mhm.
physical, and less time on our energetic body. So through that process over the past few years, I've really just deepened my practices that have been focused on cleaning out my interior, so I can show up as the best version of my authentic self in the exterior.
Wow. I can attest that the past couple of years have really tested my ability to move beyond and past everything that I was being hit with left and right. Changes to the business, changes to my family dynamics and personal life, a lot of loss. And as much as I wanted to move past it, I was also fearing a lot of the change as well. So, yes, it is difficult to force yourself to look internally to say, okay, well, what is it about my maybe initial and standard reaction, usual reaction to situations? Maybe I could start to change what my perspective is, and then maybe I'll get a different result. I mean, and I know again, I'm just sort of summarizing, but so that was a big journey for you.
Yeah, and I think to that point, awareness is the first step.
Mhm.
When we become aware of our patterns, our inherited belief systems, our shadows, um, that is step one.
Mhm.
We can some people go throughout life just completely numb and not paying attention to any of that. But when we do have that level of awareness, we've already completed a really big first step. And then from there, we have a choice. Do we want to address any of these things? How far
Mhm.
deep down the rabbit hole do you want to go, with intention to work through these things that are holding us back? And at the same time, like you said, as we move through life, there's detours, roadblocks,
Right.
earthquakes, and all the things that kind of shake us up. And it's life to have to navigate those things.
Yeah. Yes, not always easy, definitely difficult. I also learned how to change my internal speak to myself.
Mm.
And, because everything that you say out loud and everything that you say to yourself is what you continue to receive and cultivate. So when you start changing that internal speak, and I should say, stop saying things like, well, that kind of crap always happens to me. No, 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 no. Stop saying that because you know what? You're just continuing to receive that sort of same crap.
Yeah, you've put yourself in the wheel.
Yeah.
So there's two things. One, there's the internal speak, which you're speaking to now, and then there's the external,
Mhm.
right? So our words, as you've mentioned, are very powerful, both internally and externally. And to me, I've found that the more I speak truthfully, but positively, with a positive twist on things, the lighter things seem to be, the less impact they seem to have on my system. And I would use the example of, as an entrepreneur, there's, I mean, ebbs and flows. It's a wild adventure. Um, and as an entrepreneur, sometimes things don't work out the way we anticipate them. And we can sit there and be like, "Oh man, I'm a failure. I'm not able to do this, or what have you." And we could be in that experience for years,
Right.
right? Or we could say, "You know what? There's lessons that I've learned from this. I gave everything that I possibly could to this endeavor. I shined in the way that I felt was right. It didn't work, and so it is, and move on. Right?
Yes.
So yeah, I agree with you. You know, the power of our words. We as humans are extremely powerful people. I think many people underestimate our power, and that includes our words and also our actions.
Absolutely. I spent many years on a frantic hamster wheel. That's my sort of visual and way of describing running the business. When things were wonderful, it was wonderful. When things were not great, it was like an avalanche.
Right.
And again, to your point, you just continue and you keep yourself on that wheel. And it took time. It took time to tell myself, okay, it's time to get off the hamster wheel, Dawn. We're not doing this anymore. But yeah, it's a journey. It's absolutely a journey. Every day is a new day to speak that positive and to bring in and manifest all of the wonderful things that you want to bring into your life and be connected with great people like you. Yes, we have a history. We go back to Hoboken. I know you for many years. I'm grateful that you're here today. You popped up on my feed and I was like, "Oh man, I am getting Christopher on the show." So this is fabulous that we're having this conversation. So let's talk about legacy. Legacy with intention is the theme for the show and the conversation with you. So what does legacy mean to you personally?
Mm. Legacy is directly correlated to impact. So when we think about our time that we have here on this beautiful earth, it's pretty limited. It goes quickly in the grand scheme of things. And when I when I think about legacy, it means what is like the lasting impression that you have on people,
Hmm.
and that goes for whether you're living or deceased, right? So what are people saying about you afterwards? How have you impacted lives, and how have you showed up in service?
Yeah. So how is that translated into everything that you're doing? So you are still a wealth advisor, right? Okay.
Mhm.
So I'm assuming that how you interact with your clients now and your portfolio and your customer base has to be different.
Yeah, I mean, really, the change came about a decade into my work. So I'm about 20 years as a wealth advisor, and about a decade in, I I wound up participating in a coaching program, and it was one of the best things that's happened to me in my career. What it did was it took me out of the what I was trained on, and that's talking to people about the very quantitative quantitative pieces of finance, right? You know, when you first meet with a client, like, fact finder, right? How much do you have in assets? What's your date of birth? You know, when do you want to retire? What, blah, blah, blah. To the questions I ask now are, when you think about money, what needs, concerns, or feelings come to mind,
Wow.
right? Or, what lights you up the most about what you do for your career? Or where do you see yourself in or 20 years? Or what does impact mean to you? What does legacy mean to you? So, any shifting in the questions that I asked to those softer questions allowed a deeper experience with the clients that I was working with. And I started to notice how I was then moving into coaching and helping people transition from a career that they really didn't enjoy doing to one in which they did, or coaching around seeing that someone's overworking and not spending enough time with family, but understanding that family is very important, walking them through that process in a mindful way. And third, most important, I think, is really what you do beyond the things for you, right? What you do for not only your family, um, in your extended family, but your community and the rest of the world, the less fortunate. We here in America, I think, have a very fortunate life. We have a lot of luxury. We have a lot of experiences. We get to freely travel all throughout the world. You know, there's so many benefits to being an American, and I think for that we get to look at how can we show up for people that don't have an experience as great as we do,
Right.
and how could we help humanity um, get even 1% closer to having a better experience in their life.
So before we get into the ventures of Sacred Ohms and Arcadia, have you run into a situation where you needed to help a client with the shift of the mindset from wealth accumulation to one of intention? I mean, obviously, of course, you're helping them as a wealth advisor to accumulate, right, and to help them be financially sound.
Yeah.
How do you
Well,
help them with that mindset shift?
well, I have to admit, I don't always help them with accumulation.
Okay.
Sometimes I help people with the distribution phase of life. And I'm going to use an example. There's a family that we have that we took on as a client. Let's just say they have about $10 million in assets, and they're retired, living on Social Security, and their required minimum distributions from their IRAs. And I was listening to the spouse, and she wanted to do more traveling and potentially buy a home in the south of France, small little condo, and blah, blah, blah. And the husband was always like, no, 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 we can't afford that. So, in a situation like that, which is pretty common,
Mhm.
people in their accumulation phase of life, they are oftentimes looking to a certain point in time, like, okay, I'm going to accumulate money, I'm going to save, I'm going to get to retirement at 65, and then I'm going to have a period of time where I distribute funds that I've saved and finally enjoy the life that I have. Well, that's great, but often what winds up happening is when they get to retirement, if they don't think enough about retirement in advance, they get to retirement and they maybe sit and watch the news all day. And they don't have a plan. They don't have a drive or energy to go out and do the things that they had thought that they might want to do in retirement. And then there's also the fear that comes up.
Mhm.
What happens if the cost of healthcare goes up, or the stock market tanks, or the real estate market tanks, or blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I could come up with all the excuses in the world about what people are fearful about, especially if they're watching the news every day. It's our job, in my belief, is our job as an advisor is to kind of help them navigate those fears that come up and find a happy medium to where they can enjoy what they've worked hard to create, and ultimately, um, yeah, enjoy the remainder of the experience that they have on the planet.
Right. So how did all of that shape conscious wealth?
Well, I uh, I want to. I don't know if are you familiar with Vipassana?
No.
It's a 10-day silent meditation practice.
Okay.
10 hours a day for 10 days, so 100 hours total of meditation. No speaking, no looking at anyone in the eyes, and no stimulation, and just meditation. Yeah, they take away your phone, your books, your journal, your everything. And I did it in India about 2.5 years ago. So here I am, day two, after about 20 hours of meditation, in a lot of pain, specifically in my lower back, from being in the meditation posture on a pillow for 20 hours, and in my hips, my back, and it's about 125 degrees during the day there. It
Mm.
happened to go in the dead of summer, and there was no AC. So I'm lying on a piece of plywood that's got a mat on it, which was my bed, and staring up at the ceiling, naked, fan on full blast, sweating. It's about 1 o'clock in the morning, can't sleep, pretty much delirious. And I'm like, what am I doing here? The pain has set in, the emotions have set in. I kind of had, I think, at that point, my first breakdown, where I was crying and letting a lot of emotion out. And yeah, I'm like, what is going on? What am I here to do? What brought me here? And I don't know if you've ever experienced a download, what I would refer to a download or guidance or a message or what have you from
Yes.
somewhere up above.
Hmm.
And it was the clearest one I've ever received in my life. And it basically said, write a book. That's simple. So I'm like, okay, I'll write a book, and what shall I write about? And as I started to tune in, it was to write about this collective that you've been envisioning. The year or so up until that point, I had been just channeling, I guess you'd say, ideas around what I would refer to as a conscious wealth collective. A space where people that come in have done some level of internal work to overcome a scarcity mindset, and are in this community where everyone's vibrating at an abundance mindset, and has a nice field, and we're sharing ideas, we're sharing best practices, we're sharing investments, we're sharing all sorts of things.
Hmm.
And ultimately, it was like, write about that, and whatever you're meant to create will be created. So up until that point, the longest thing I've written since college was a 2-page investor update. So I flew to Bali right after India, and I wrote for the next 3 months.
Wow. That's amazing. I
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It brought up a lot of stuff.
Well, of course it is, right? And when you were talking and you were speaking about the pain that you were in and you'd reached that threshold, right? You were about to just leap and take the next step right over to I'm going to let all of that go. This is the last amount of pain that I'm going to feel and I'm going to step into what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's what I felt when you were saying that.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. So, how has, again, I'm trying to go down the journey of what you've been doing. Has that then helped to shape Sacred Ohms in Arcadia? What are those ventures?
So ultimately, Sacred Ohms started to be created prior to my Vipassana. And, it was through retreats that it really transformed my relationship with myself. And I felt, I witnessed transformation in so many other founders and others around me, that once I was able to start tuning into my energy more, I noticed how important set and setting were to this experience of going on retreat. In that, sometimes I'd walk into a retreat and I'd feel very open, and it was inviting, and I felt a level of freedom. And other spaces I would walk in and just something was off, just the vibe wasn't right. I started to ask questions on how these retreat leaders were finding spaces, and it was Google or Airbnb. So it was during a mastermind I was in where I was asked to create something new. Okay, get out of your daily grind and do something new, whether it be start a podcast or write a book or whatever. I chose to create a company, and the company was to support retreat leaders that are hosting these transformational experiences find sacred spaces around the world that can serve as a foundation for the highest vibration of these experiences that they were hosting. So essentially, Sacred Ohms is like Airbnb specifically for sacred spaces around the world. So we have about 600 properties currently, that are everywhere from Costa Rica to Bali and in between. And you would the retreat leaders search for things like a yoga shala or a sound dome, you know, things that they would need for leading their experience.
I just really love conversations where there is a need is identified and somebody fills that need. It just really makes me feel so good. I've had so many conversations with friends and guests that have been on the show. And again, the theme really, and I have to take a step back and wonder, or maybe not really wonder. I know why, right? Because I know why all of you are in my life.
Mhm.
um, there is definitely a common thread with everyone and the same sort of conversations and the same internal speak, saying things positively, keeping your frequency high, finding a need, filling it seems to be a common thread with everyone. But regardless, sorry. Um,
No, all good. Yeah,
that
absolutely.
that's amazing. And
Yeah,
how's it been received?
everybody loves it, and it's a new business. It's
Huh.
an entrepreneur activity, right? You know, so when you're going through creating a startup, especially a tech one, you know, it's we sometimes have this vision of how easy it's going to be, and oh yeah, you just like create it, and everybody's going to come use it, right? Makes sense,
Right.
especially you know when everyone I asked about the idea before we started building. And even since then, is like, yes, oh my gosh, I've been thinking about that. Thank you so much for creating it. You're like, oh, this is going to be like so easy. Yeah. Okay. Well, it wasn't easy at all. It's been quite a wild journey. I would say my experience has been one in which I've learned so much because to me when I built this it was a passion project. It was something that came from my heart and that I really felt the world needed, and I was filling a gap. I While I had started my wealth management practice about 18 years prior, there was a lot of structure, and it was a the financial planning is a there's a good amount of backing and understanding and support system and everything there. Sacred Ohms was a new venture, something that had not yet been created, although it has an that Airbnb-esque feel to it. You still are building something that you're asking someone to change the way that they've done things in the past
Mhm. Mhm.
and to start something new. So yeah, I mean everything from fundraising, which I never had to do before, outside of for charitable activities, to um, navigating, having to completely change business models multiple times, to having to let go of employees and restructure. To oh man, all the feels.
Yeah. I can attest. I know. I know how hard it is to build a business and you think, like field of dreams, if you build it, they will come. And it is absolutely true because that's what you're saying positively and that's what you're putting out there. But I have to say that, some of the most beautiful things are born out of pressure. Just think of a diamond, right?
Mhm.
So, and again, if it speaks to you and it spoke to you and it's from your heart and you're putting it out there, of course, it's gonna be well received, and it takes time. It takes time for that to happen.
It takes time. It takes energy. I had hired a pretty sizable team to create the venture and carry it through to launch and even beyond launch. To me, I was a founder, but I wasn't. It wasn't something that I wanted to operate or
Right.
or
Right.
run as a CEO or yeah. So going through that process and being the leader, but yet at a little bit of an arm's length in terms of daily operations. It was a great experience, and to that point, as we've launched, we've been in a place of listening. So we created something and we thought everyone wanted and needed, and got the feedback. Okay, great. then once we launched, we started to just observe and listen and get feedback. And um, that's actually how Arcadia was born, right? So we started to get, several people coming to us interested in selling their retreat space, and then others coming to us asking, if we know of any retreat spaces for sale. And yeah, there's other opportunities that have been developing, and I'm here to just listen and follow the seeds.
Yeah, and be open to it, right? Because you may not be able to script absolutely everything and plan for everything to go this exact way. But when you're open to watching that journey and allowing that flow to happen and you put it out there, yeah, you see all the beautiful things that sort of come back that you may not have necessarily thought about the first time.
Yeah, and it might not come back directly.
Yeah, indirect is good too. So you are living with intention. How do you help someone, or what words of advice would you give to someone to start living with more intention?
I think the first step is slowing down. Many people move at a very quick pace. We're constantly being bombarded
Mhm.
with information, opportunities, and it's in the space that I've found clarity and can move with more intention, really. So, and as entrepreneurs, most of the time, entrepreneurs are too busy. They're busy in their business. They're
Mhm.
so in their business versus working on their business, or even step back working on themselves. Right? Their business is their baby. Oftentimes, like most of or all of their wealth is tied up in their business. So it's like their thing. They're just trying to do whatever they can to save it, to keep it going, and then if they have a family, they're balancing between family life. So oftentimes self gets pushed away. Where, I mean, the simplest things from, I remember this retreat that I went on in Florida at a property called Chosen. And it was hosted by a group that helps entrepreneurs with growth stage capital, and it's like an accelerator of sorts. And the majority of people, founders that were in the room, it was a small gathering, just of 10 or 15 people. Most of them, having successful businesses in the 10 to $20 million a year range, but looking to grow to like 50 or 100 million plus. And 3-day weekend, nothing too extravagant, just a little bit of yoga, a lot of community sharing, time in nature walks. By the end of the weekend, you would have thought that there were all sorts of psychedelic experiences and surgeries done. These founders, their minds were blown open. They were different people when they left, to the extent that they wanted to start bringing, like hosting retreats for their company, and bring their employees to an experience like that. So, when we think about the work, right? It doesn't have to be so hard. Oftentimes people don't even know where to start. And, really, the starting point is awareness. Something, I want to change something. Something is not working. Okay, well, you need to step back and commit yourself with intention to something that can help potentially lead you beyond where you are today, whether that's a retreat or whether it's meditation or breath work or yoga or ice baths or whatever it is.
My struggle, Christopher, was making sure that I was considered a priority in my own life and in my own existence. And to your point exactly, being in it and giving your all, which of course you're going to do as an entrepreneur. You're going to do
Yeah.
anything and everything conceivably possible to make sure that your business is running and working and successful. And I, personally speaking, completely lost myself. I wasn't even the bottom of the totem pole. I was like negative of on the totem pole. And it took a very big, devastating event in my life to happen for me to take a step back and say, wow, okay, this is this is so not how I'm going to continue to run the rest of my life. And when I allowed myself to become a priority and I made space, just even as simple to use this analogy, you want to get a new pair of shoes, make room in your closet for that new pair of shoes. You want to bring something else into your life, you got to make room for it. And for me, it was allowing me to have a life and be a priority, which freed me from, again, the analogy of the hamster wheel, to allow me to be a whole and healthy person.
Yeah, I had a call with a founder today who had two widowmaker heart attacks,
Wow.
and he survived. Obviously, spoke with him today, and those experiences caused him to change his career, and now he's in a new line of work. And as I was hearing him speak, I noticed just in his energy that something was off. His nervous system was not anywhere. It was very like high, meaning like not settled, and his breath was out of the mouth, in and out of the mouth, and it was he would speak a lot, and then you know. So I asked him. I said, let's just take a pause for a moment. Let's close our eyes, connect with the ground, and breathe in through our bellies. And I asked him about his nervous system and how he's feeling and his breath. And he's wants to create. He wants to create impact. He wants to share the message. And I told him, I said, well, you can't expect your message to be received in the highest timeline of the way it's meant to be received if your cup is only half full.
Yeah.
Right. So in order for us, as entrepreneurs, we think like do, like we got to do this, we got to do this, we got to do this. If you actually do a little bit less, but do it with more intention and more energy and focus, usually there's greater benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Much more is moved through and uh, happens. So
I could talk to you for hours. I
uh,
I really am so happy that we connected, and I am so feeling your energy of where you are now. Not saying that you weren't like that before, because we were doing, we were doing different things, right? We were in Hoboken, we were doing a lot of stuff for the chamber. Obviously our focus was a bit different, but to see you in this place now is really beautiful. It really is.
feels really good to be here with you. And yeah, the experience of being so involved, when you and I were in Hoboken and doing all the community service work, I uh, it felt really good to do that. And at some point in time, I took a break because I realized I actually spread myself a little bit too thin. I
Mhm.
was trying to do and create too much and support too much, and then I really like took that break to step back and be like, is this really what I want to be doing? Is this the type, the community service work that I was doing? Does it really feel connected with my heart?
Mhm.
Right. And ultimately, it was great work that we were doing, raising money for scholarships and supporting schools and supporting businesses locally. Um, but for me, I wanted to move beyond that. And that's kind of what led me into the work that I do with ocean conservation and where my focus is on providing an abundance of clean drinking water to everyone in the world. I, it's through that time and space that I gave myself to really reevaluate and just refocus my effort to be more connected to where my heart is at the moment. So feels good.
Well, it shows. It absolutely shows, and I know that feeling of launching something and starting something from a place of, for me, it was happiness. Starting this podcast was from a place of happiness. Not that I wasn't happy when I had Home Sweet Home and the bakery and all of that. Again, I was fulfilling a childhood passion, and I was ridiculously excited that I was finally doing that. And I got myself out of the corporate rat race, and I was doing community stuff, and I was working with other entrepreneurs and, women's networking and all the sort of fun things. And this is really very different. This is showing, not that I wasn't showing up as my most authentic self before. I absolutely was, but again, it was sort of a rat race, and sorry to use the analogy again, it was the hamster wheel, and this is not like that at all. And I know that feeling.
Yeah, it's just the next part of your journey. When I look back on, um, my 20s and 30s, I don't. Uh, I'm still the same person,
Mhm.
and I'm also very different. You know, uh, I've ascended to the next level of my journey, and in this new part of the journey, I'm meant to be creating just different levels and doing different things, or just doing things in a different way.
Right. And it's amazing. So I want to ask you, before we go, I ask every guest the same question because I believe the stories we leave behind say so much about how we've showed up in the world. So, Christopher, tell me, what's one story, big or small, that you hope people remember you for?
Ooh, the first one that comes to mind is when we threw a party in Hoboken. Remember the Hoboken Relief Fund?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so that was the first thing that came to mind during Hurricane Sandy. I remember, being in my apartment and not having any power, and I was stranded on my street back on Monroe Street. I couldn't even, there was this water on both sides, and I was I called up a couple people that, a couple friends that we have in common, and I was just like, we got to do something. We have to we have to allocate resources to people that, need help, and let's do an event, right? So in a very short period of time, man, what a beautiful team that came together to just throw an epic party for an amazing cause. And it was just super fun. Like I think, to me, that it feels so good to finish on like in a place of like play and celebration.
Mhm.
I can sometimes, often depending on who you ask, but be a very like serious person, and yeah, the being remembered as, for doing something that's great, but also having fun doing it and doing it in a playful space. That's what I would like to be remembered for.
I am so happy that you shared that story because, one, I totally remember, and that was a pretty hectic and horrible time that we all shared together as a community. And I'm so happy that you shared that because, to me, it it feels like that was one small thing that you started to do from that idea of, hey, how can I think bigger than myself to help the community that I'm in? And I just see that as, that's that was your first small step into where you are today. That's how I
Yeah.
take that.
And it was a big step. I think we raised over $1 million.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
I didn't do it all
absolutely.
alone. We had some pretty amazing fundraisers on the board, but yeah, thank you for sharing that reflection. I'm glad I'm glad that one came through.
That's great. Thank you, Christopher. Thank you for sharing everything that you've shared with us. And thank you for being part of the story. And I want to thank everyone for tuning into this episode of Dawn of a Story. If something you heard today moved you, made you laugh, or made you think, share it with someone you love. Please like and subscribe to the show. And if you're feeling brave, I'd love to hear your story by commenting below. It helps other story lovers find us too. If you're interested in connecting with Christopher, he can be reached at christophermackin.co, and I will also put that in the show notes. Until next time, keep listening, keep sharing, and keep telling your story. Thank you, Christopher, so much. Thank you. Thank you. This was great.
Thank you.